Tom Haberstroh, Yahoo Sports, does a phenomenal job in regards to NBA coverage. He is what I like to call Mr. Numbers, Mr. Analytics. Also on the Blazers broadcast, so he certainly has had his fair share of looks at Deandre Ayton at his recent stop, but obviously covers the entire league at large for Yahoo Sports. Haberstroh, would you like to say anything to Red Panda before we get to Deandre Ayton?
I have a stat. She is one of one. There's no one like her. She is the best. She is the GOAT, and wish her the best on her recovery. Minor setback, major comeback.
I agree. Perfectly said. All right, so Deandre Ayton, what do the numbers say and support in regards to him living up to the billing, right? His talent level, and where has he been better than expected, and where has he been more deficient than expected?
Well, he is a classic case, George, of great box score stats and not great impact. So when you look at the analytics, of course, we can look at his box score that says over the last 15 games finishing the season last year, he was on fire. I mean, the guy averaged 23.2 points, 12.4 rebounds in the final 15 games of the Blazers season before he got hurt. That's like all-star, all-NBA, Anthony Davis type numbers, right? But the problem with DeAndre Ayton is the other stuff. It's the defense. It's the energy, the playing with force. He doesn't like to be totally physical out there. His free throw rate is among the lowest in the NBA at his position. And I got to say, all that said, if you get him at $8 million a year, that's a great pickup.
Okay.
He's got great upside. I think when you look at DeAndre Ayton, like at $32 million is a different proposition than getting him as a flyer at the mini-med level or an $8 million contract. I think that's a really smart move if he's motivated and if he's willing to be more physical than he showed at times last season.
So how does he fit in with the Lakers?
Well, he's going to be a great lob threat. Maybe not as great as Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively over in Dallas, but he's going to be a really nice alley-oop co-pilot with Luka Doncic. Scoot Henderson, the really good young talent for Portland, he's a guy that got into the paint and looked for DeAndre Ayton every single time. And D.A. loves those lobs. He loves getting those lobs at the rim. As long as he's got a guy who's willing to pass that, he's going to be willing to finish it. So that's one thing that he's going to be excellent at, being paired with Luka Doncic, is that pick and roll game. And he's got to run hard at the rim and really want to get that vertical spacing and really put pressure on the defense. Sometimes he likes to hang back in that pick and roll and look for that mid-range jumper. And if you haven't seen his mid-range jumper, it is auto. It is automatic. I mean, he is shooting from that 12-foot range right around the nail at the free throw line. It's a little bit of a line drive, and you kind of hold your breath when he launches it. But the numbers don't lie. He's about, it's like a layup. It's like 56% mid-range jumper right around that area of 12 feet. And so, you know, I projected him as a guy that would be like a Brook Lopez type who could stretch to the 3-point line because he's so money in that, that 15-foot range. But it hasn't really translated for him, at least not last year. He was 1 for 16 on corner three-pointers last year, and at the top of the key was a little bit better. But this guy is a good pick and roll roller. He just has to screen a little harder. There were times where he wasn't setting the right screen or holding it long enough to draw that contact. Again, the physicality thing is kind of like a night-to-night thing. Depends on where he's at that night, whether he's going to be that physical guy who can really pancake other opponents on those screens and then roll hard to the rim. There are times that he does this very consistently, and he looks like an all-star. And there's other times where it doesn't seem like he's very locked in. And at $30 million a year, you demand a lot more energy from that kind of caliber of player. But at $8 million, I think it's a great pickup for the Lakers.
So I'm looking at his shot chart, and I would say roughly around 300 shots in the restricted area, so about half of his shots in the restricted area. if he's playing with Luka Doncic, he's going to need to do that more than just 50% of the time.
Yeah, those rim runners like I was talking to you about, the lobs, that's going to be it. A lot of times –
But to your point, though, there's a lot of settling in between the dotted line and the restricted area, a lot of that, which is roughly around like 8 feet or so to 10 feet. And then, to your point, a lot of stuff around the free throw line extended area. Those are shots I just don't think J.J. Redick is going to want him to take.
Yeah, well, number one, if you're shooting that at like 45%, that like baby hook in the paint, that's not going to cut it. Efficiency-wise, just it's not a great shot. But the other thing is you don't draw fouls on those.
Right.
You know? He's a good shooter, but he needs to get to the free throw line more and play through contact more if he wants to be effective in the paint. And a lot of times he just goes to that baby hook, and it's an okay shot most of the time. But he's not a guy that is going to play through. He's not AD. Like, AD lives at the free throw line. He is not that kind of player. And look, a lot of really, like Brook Lopez also doesn't get to the line, and he's a very positive player offensively. DA also, he's not the most willing passer. If you get him the rock, he is probably going to look for his jumper. Or if you get him a pass, a lob around the rim, he will finish it. But, you know, it's really going to come to motivation. It's going to come down to J.J. Redick's coaching and getting him in the right spots and playing with Luka. The hope is that playing with a point guard like that, like he did with Chris Paul en route to the NBA Finals, you get a guy like that that can really get you the ball in the right spots. DA can be really effective.
So, real quick, defensively, where would you put him?
I think he's an average defender. He's a solid shot blocker, but it's just a matter of if he's focused and in the right coverages. He's a super athlete. He should be able to run the floor up and down in transition, but it just depends if he's motivated that night. I think that's one of the big things why his box score stats looks like an all-star level, but his impact stats drag is a lot of times in transition he can be beat down the floor. And from what I can see and what I saw on the broadcast, watching those games, there are times where he is by far the fastest guy out. He's the best athlete out on the court. It's just a matter of whether he's willing to do it. And so that's what it comes down to coaching, where it's just, can you light the fire underneath him so that he is willing to run the floor and block shots and play physical? Because you know it's in him. It's just whether you can draw it out.
Now,
go ahead, Beto.
So
sorry.
The Lakers, options very, very limited what they can get. And you mentioned it. At this price, great pickup for the Lakers to get Deandre Ayton at this price. You bring up the stats of what he can do. That being said, why would Portland pay him to go away?
Well, they have a lot of centers.
Well, but isn't that also an indictment that they took all those centers?
Well, I can't speak to why they would let him go, but I will say when you had Donovan Clingan at the 7th pick last year, they love Donovan Clingan. He is one of the elite rim protectors in the NBA. Statistically, like his player tracking data, when he's around the basket and you're trying to score against him, he's Wemby-esque. Like, they want to see more out of Donovan Clingan, and they also, I think for DeAndre Ayton, I think he has aspirations to compete to win a championship, and the timeline might be a little bit different for DeAndre Ayton. And at that number, it's harder to move DeAndre Ayton, and so I can understand why it came to this. And as you saw, I think there was a lot of interest in DeAndre Ayton, and he joined the Lakers where he can have a really good opportunity next to Luka Doncic and compete for a deeper playoff run than, say, where the Blazers are right now.
So let's just to recap where we're at. Tom Haberstroh of Yahoo Sports, and obviously part of the Blazers local broadcast as well. So he's incredibly familiar with DeAndre's game. He shoots the ball in the restricted area or finishes in the restricted area about 50% of the time. That needs to be upped, okay? But the talent is undeniable. No one is denying that. But he's an average defender. But ultimately, this boils down to the want to and the willingness to do stuff, which has not been a thing that he's done for 7 years and has sent a lot of his teammates to shrug their shoulders at him. So basically, he needs to realize this is his last stop potentially if he doesn't fulfill whatever promise that he's had? At a fair way to assess what we've discussed today.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say this is a contract year for DA. And that's his name. Up in Portland, he goes by DA.
Okay.
Deandre Ayton is a guy that, when motivated, he's someone that is an all-star caliber player. Like, he can be that kind of guy if he's motivated. Now, the question for me is he going to see this opportunity with the Lakers as a contract year where he has promise and can show that he can be a winning player and get back to the player that he was in the NBA Finals with the Phoenix Suns? I think that's best case scenario. And if he falls in love with the mid-range and doesn't play with force, I think that could be an issue for the Lakers that really want to pound the paint, get into the paint, use that vertical spacing with Luka and do these kickouts or lobs. He has to play with force, and a lot more force than he showed at times. And I think if you get that kind of player, DA can be really a high-impact guy. It's just going to come down to that motivation because he's got the athleticism, man. He can fly, dude. He can fly up and down the floor, and he's got a nice mid-range jumper. It's just sometimes he gets a little too in love with that, and it can get him, sort of in an inefficient place. But as long as he's rim running and he's playing hard on defense and he's getting back, and he's locked in defensively, he's going to really help the Lakers next year.
Yeah, look, I hope I'm wrong about this because I don't want the kid to wash out of the league as a number 1 overall pick. But honestly, look, we need the content, to be honest with you. There's that part of it too. But it really is like, I'm a big believer in what's the saying? The tiger doesn't change its stripes or whatever. I just think after 7 years, you're kind of a formed player. There's not a ton of precedent. Maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong. Is there a ton of precedent of a guy in year 8, it all clicking together in that regard, in like the motivation aspect of it?
There's not a huge track record in terms of box score stats and impact stats, kind of contradicting each other. It reminds me a lot of Andre Drummond, right? Where it's like this guy is a crazy athlete, amazing box score.
That's a
numbers.
good comp.
But like in terms of impact, like winning plays, it's he could be a borderline starter or someone who can fill in as a backup at the latter part of his career. But at his best, Andre Drummond's a really good, useful player. JaVale McGee, another one. But when you look at with the Blazers last year, when he was on the floor, DeAndre Ayton was on the floor, Blazers allowed 117 points every 100 possessions. When he was on the bench, so guys like DeAndre Ayton, Rob Williams came onto the floor to sub him out, the defense improved all the way from 117 points per 100 possessions allowed to 111. And so with a guy with that kind of salary and that kind of, number 1 overall pick, a guy who went to the finals, you want to see a little bit more impact defensively and being able to defend at a high level and, protecting that rim, playing great in the pick and roll defense. That's something that DA hasn't really shown over the last couple of years, is having the impact stats matching his box score stats. And this is a really good opportunity. He had that quote a few years ago, I feel like with Phoenix, where he was just like, I forget the exact line, George, but it was something like, all I'm chasing is that big second contract, or I want to be a $30 million guy in this league. And my hope is that he used this opportunity financially as a motivating factor to play hard all the time. And if he does that, man, the Laker fans are going to love this guy.
Okay, good. I hope that ends up being the case. Thank you for giving us an unbiased opinion and letting the data tell us how it's unfolded for him. Last thing before I let you go, I do have one more. Where do you see the Lakers currently? You look at this roster. I know it's somewhat incomplete at the moment for a lot of teams, but where do you see them in the West right now if you had to slot them in a seed at the moment?
I think they're fringe at the play-in versus getting in that top 6. I think the West got so much better, and you saw just that log jam, 50-32 last year, and they got the 3rd seed, but they were just as easily one unlucky bounce at the late in games early in the season. They were right around the 8 and 9 seed. So I think that's probably where they're at. I think the Jaren Jackson Jr. injury and losing Desmond Bane is going to help the Lakers kind of solidify that 7-6 slot. It's just, I think losing DFS is going to really hurt. And I love Jake LaRavia. Go Deeks, But this roster is not fully complete, and DA's going to help. But they still need a premier center next to Luka Doncic. I think Ayton can be that, but would I bet on it? I'm not there yet.
Tom Haberstroh does fantastic work for Yahoo Sports. We go way back. Thank you so much, buddy, for jumping on. Let's do this more during the season, okay?
You got it, George. Thanks, man.
See you, bud.
Good stuff. Real good stuff.
There you go.
A lot of it is